Good afternoon, everyone. It's 3:02, so let's just get started for this webinar. So thank you all for joining us today. So before we start our today's session, I would like to take a moment to introduce our International Chinese Statistical Association, or ICSA. So ICSA is a nonprofit organization founded to promote the theory and application of statistical science. So currently, it has over 2,000 active members across academia, government, and industry worldwide. So the association also publishes two scientific journals, Statistica Clinica, which focus on the theoretical development, and Statistics in Bioscience, which highlights the innovation in statistical methods and applications in biological and life science, health science, and biopharmaceutical science. So in addition to the publishing, ICSA actively sponsors or co-sponsors several annual conferences, including the ICSA Applied Statistics Symposium, the ICSA China Conference, and the ICSA International Conference, and etc. So ICSA is also deeply committed to supporting career development, particularly in the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries. So we have our Lotus series, which focus on the soft skills and leadership development. From last year, we started from the no experience, no problem session and elevating careers through recognition and visibility, effective communication at work. And today we are at the art and science of negotiation as a biostatistician. In addition, ICSA also offers technical training sessions in clinical trial analysis and related topics. So if you are interested in catching up on past webinars, video recordings are available on our YouTube channel. So get your phone and scan and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can also find information on the ICSA official website for the upcoming webinars information. And next, we would like to acknowledge the ICSA Webinars Committee for organizing this event and for their continued efforts in supporting the growth and collaboration of statisticians. So lastly, I will briefly talk about the logistics of our webinar. Typically, it will last 40 to 45 minutes, and audience are welcome to submit your questions for the Q&A at any time during the session. And the speaker will address them at the end in the order they are received, or they can type an answer during the session. So the video recording of the webinar will be shared via a follow-up email, typically within 5 days after the webinar. And at the conclusion of the webinar, a brief post-event survey will appear, and we welcome your feedback and suggestions. And for today's webinar, I believe you will, after you finish the survey, you may get the potential opportunity to schedule a one-on-one with our panelists. Yeah, so with that, now I will turn the session over to our facilitator, Helena.
Thank you, Sheila, for the introduction. So I am Helena Fan. I'm the co-founder of the Lotus Group. We are the leading firm, staffing leading firm for biometrics professionals in the pharmaceutical industry. And I will be your moderator for today's discussion. And today we're joined by two outstanding leaders who bring deep expertise from both scientific and strategic fronts of biostatistics. I'm honored to introduce Dr. Jing Huang and Dr. Jian Zhu. Dr. Jing Huang, she is a Chief Data AI Officer, Data and AI Officer at CareDx. She is a leading expert in applying AI and statistical methods to biomedical innovation. Her contribution to statistical science and to the community, dedication to community service is very truly inspirational. And Dr. Jian Zhu, he is the head of late-stage neuro-oncology, biostatistics, and head of statistical excellence and survey. He has advanced statistical science through innovation, and he's passionate about bridging academia and industry. So as Sheila mentioned, we have a very exciting prize for the survey today. So Dr. Jing Huang and Dr. Jian Zhu offered 1 hour one-to-one session or coaching session as a prize. So if you participate the survey, you get a chance to win that very special prize. So without overdue, let's dive in the discussion because negotiation is such a key skill for biostatisticians. The first questions I have for both panelists is looking back, what was the most pivotal negotiation in your career and what made it successful or unsuccessful? Can you share the story?
Sure, I can start. The most pivotal one actually happened before my career started. So it requires me maybe give you a little bit background of my upbringing. So I come from an intellectual family. Both my parents are professors. And not only that, I know my then boyfriend, now husband, for a very, very long time since I was a young kid. And he also comes from an intellectual family. Both his parents are professors. So I think it's an unwritten assumption we'll go to academia instead of the dark side of industry. And my advisor back when I was at Stanford also hold similar belief. He saw this a waste of the brain power to go to the industry. So he also, without consulting with me, firmly believed I should go to academia. He actually started finding me faculty jobs before I graduated. Long story short, and I was planning for that career actually. Doing my PhD at Stanford, I taught summer classes to prepare for it. But long story short, towards the end, I decided not to go that route. Main reason being, it seems to be a pass. It's almost like you would watch a movie, but you saw a spoiler. I kind of know how that pass will work out. Be excellent, doing brilliantly, doing good, doing decent, doing okay, right? I kind of know that path, and I don't want to lead a life that is a known path. So I want to go to industry. And this is the first time almost everybody I cared and I loved, and they cared and loved me, disagreed with me. They all think I should go to academia. So that's my first, you can call it a negotiation. It's more about advocating for myself. So anyway, it was successful. That's why I'm here, right? Being in industry for more than 20 years. And there are two things, there's things I learned immediately. It's important of articulate your authentic desire even when you may not be able to comprehensively defend it. And the people who truly respect you and love you, they will respect your decision and become your supporter. Even the initial argument may be hard. But you need to go out to that first step. The second thing I learned many, many years later, and this is the first time I probably tell this, and I know it's being recorded, is I then went happily on my path, not thinking about much about that decision until in the 2022-ish, I realized my dad is not getting any younger. He has some health challenge. My advisor also was sick. So actually, that's the motivation I got the fellow. Although I will never be a professor, I thought the fellow is probably the closest thing they will feel happy about me. Because when I talk to my dad, I'm a VP, I'm now a senior VP, now I'm a C-level. He's happy, but it's not his world. He doesn't understand. But when I got the fellow, wow, you can see his smile, and he started talking about how many fellows he got. He is a very successful scientist by all standards. Like in his age, when China is still more or less closed, you can see that excitement. And also, I was so happy I got the fellow before my PhD advisor, I still very close to, passed away literally just half a year later. So I was able to say, although I didn't go to the path you all desire me to, it's almost a small compensation, recognition to say I'm still doing okay in science in some way. So that's all. You're muted, Jian.
Sorry, thank you for reminding. And I think, as a statistician, it's almost kind of like, goes without saying, we need to present some disclaimers. So I would like to first to say, all my thoughts are based on my personal observations, small data set, definitely selection bias, right? So they're all for hypothesis generation purpose only. And I almost regret like letting Jean go first because I just realized my experience is so similar to yours, and it's also about the career path choice. But it's a less pleasant experience for me because it's really negotiating with myself, debating with myself whether I should go to academia or industry because I spent quite a lot of time in academia, and it was not quite successful, to be honest, because it has been very challenging, especially during the period that I actually identified the counterexamples that disprove the theory that I was set out to prove, right? So it was actually very challenging to do those kind of theoretical work. But that experience actually forced me to really look deep into myself, right? And ask myself a lot of tough questions and forced me to see what the problems really were, right? And what choices I had to make. And I think I'm not gonna go into details about how working in the industry ultimately made me feel much happier or fulfilled or satisfactory, right? But I think the part that I believe or I consider it a huge success and changing point for my career is that it really reminded me that to think about what do you really want during a negotiation, right? And why. You also need to actually have reasons because later on I also kind of confirmed, right? During negotiations, the other party, they will ask you questions. They will challenge your claims. They also have their own reasons, right? There actually be other options out there both parties may not really thought about, right? And I think all that comes down to the negotiation is that ultimately it's a joint effort. So, but it starts with yourself. What do you really want? What's your position? And I think that's actually based on my observation has been a challenge to many people. Is that they're not ready to answer the question the other party will throw out. So I think that to me the self negotiation really actually prepared me for this.
Thank you both for sharing their personal stories and bringing very important points. It's about you. It's about what you want. I think it's very interesting about Dr. Jin Huang's story is like he also considered other people at the end, other people's
20
feelings,
years.
right? Yeah, that's very interesting. And so in terms of working in the working environment, right, lots of statisticians has to work with cross-functional. I think it's I want to go a little bit deeper with about working with, different groups. And my question is, when working with medical doctors or cross-functional leaders, what negotiation strategy or techniques have you helped you to be heard and respected?
Maybe Jen, I'll let you go first
Okay,
this round.
thank you. Thank you, James. I think it definitely requires, multiple kind of skills and techniques, right? So to me, maybe it's more like a strategy to prepare yourself during this type of negotiation. I think, as a statistician, whether you work with medical doctors or in other industry, right? First step to me, it's most important is always you need to build your reputation, because you need to make sure that your words count, right? People can trust what you say. They actually believe the claims that you make, right? And that requires a lot of hard work. Then you actually need to actually demonstrate your capability and credibility through a lot of real cases, right? After that, I think once you have the reputation, I think to me, the second piece of the strategy is always to enhance your communication skills. I know that we even in school, right? Whether you're going for a master or PhD or even undergraduate, we always emphasize the communication skills, right? It's always like, you have to have like good verbal or written communication skills. And for statisticians, we always talk about how do we communicate statistics with non-statisticians, right? But I think in the real world setting, we really have to pay extra attention, because a lot of the stakeholders, they have different levels of understanding of statistics, right? I think the most important thing regarding communication is that you cannot afford letting your stakeholders tune out, right? You have to make sure that they understand. I think language wise, and sometimes I think I would suggest that you use examples to really help you convey the message. That's actually quite important, because negotiation itself highly relies on the communication, right? So if you cannot communicate your points clearly, then people will not get your points, and it's not going to be a successful negotiation. The third point I want to make, maybe it's I wouldn't recommend that we adopt a pragmatic approach, because there are a lot of challenging situations, right? And there are a lot of issues or problems from both for actually both parties, right? So instead of looking for ideal solution, I think sometimes we're going to have to acknowledge the reality and get something out of the negotiation, instead of arguing for the ideal situation but ended up with nothing, right? The last point I think I want to really emphasize is be more understanding. I think you have to understand the other party. For example, you have to spend time and efforts really understanding the background and the context of the conversation, right? Even though it might require you to go out of your usual scope, like to learn a little bit more about, for example, if you're talking about a clinical challenge, right? You need to learn and know the background, disease background a little bit more, and to have a bigger picture, not just focus on your part. It's, I think ultimately we want to be a problem solver together with the other party, right? You cannot just say, oh, I just want my issues go away. You need to help me solve my issues. I don't care about your issues, because I don't have the knowledge, or I don't have the expertise, and I'm gonna have to turn the whole burden onto the other party. I don't think that's a collaborative attitude. So to me, I think it's not just a one single technique, but it's more like a complete strategy to help you navigate through all these negotiations.
So true. It's hard to follow after this. It's so comprehensive. Maybe I will start approach it from a different angle. I'll give you an example of how maybe I will not call it negotiation, how to navigate a difficult situation where the obviously more powerful hold a very different view. Okay. And that also happened very early in my career. It's about 2 years into my first job. I just got changed boss, not my asking. And he was back then the VP of research. I report directly to him. He was, still is, he retired. He's extremely smart and capable and reasonable. So I have been at his group for about 6 months. So we established some rapport, but I'm the junior member in the team. Like, although directly reporting to him, I probably is the most junior member. And also another important context for this particular incident is a couple of weeks ago, he dropped by my office to say, hey, Jane, we're talking about building a specific SNP array pipeline, how long it will take. And I was explaining to him, probably will take 6 to 9 months. It's a brand new pipeline. It's just me. Many things are sequential. And he asked me, oh, if we hire more person, can this be parallel? And I was explaining to him because many components are exploratory, like we need to do it. And because of the sequential nature, it's probably not going to be shortening the time too much. Not to say if you hire people, you have to train them and all that. So he's aware of that. So a couple of weeks later, me, the junior member in my office, do my own thing. He barged into my office and jaw clenching said, Jing, remember that discussion about that pipeline thing? We need to do it in just a couple months. I can hire you 5 people, right? Can you do that just in a couple months? Things in my head are reeling. He's not the type who are stupid. He's not like, oh, I forgot we had a conversation. No, he remembered that conversation. So the first thing most people is like, what are you talking about? I told you it needs 6 to 9 months, right? Like hiring 5 people is not going to help. I have to train. It will be even longer, right? That will be my immediate reaction. Like, why are you making my life so hard? Why are you barging into my office, yelling this unreasonable command, right? Maybe that's how I differ from most of people. I paused and I said, his name is Keith, and he is a red-blooded, kind of middle-aged American man, very down-to-earth, very colorful. I love his style. We kept in touch as well. I paused, I said, Keith, sometimes get 9 women pregnant don't give you a baby in a month. It give you a mess after 9 months. He's like, what? Oh. And he said, okay, Jing, I got it. I'm too hard on you. Right? I back up. So first of all, humor is always a great lubricant. Humor always signal you have empathy, right? You are also a human. You are not talking to they're not talking to a robot. You just say, oh, statistical sample size, timeline, right? You are a human. You also signal, no matter how hard the problem is, working with you will be fun, right? And it buy you a lot of leverage. And you will say, oh my God, Jing, like I'm already under attack. You want me to be funny? It's hard, but there are books to help you. So there's a book called Humor Seriously. That's the book name, Humor Seriously. So check it out. It's written by 2 Stanford professors and give you step-by-step way how you can weave in those fun elements into your work. Okay. So then he backed off, right? He's not talking about. So I said, I had an opening. I said, okay, tell me, you're a smart man. Tell me why we need to do this. We need to. It's not I need to. We're together. Tell me why we need to do this in a couple months. He said, we have this big customer. It's a very reputable, institution. There is a big conference just a year later, and they said they're going to send the sample to us, and lab already decided to run it in 3 months, and we'll do the analysis 3 months, so the pipeline need to be ready, and then we'll take 3 months to write the paper and 3 months to review. Booba! Like next year we can make a big splash. This will be published, and this is a big customer we cannot offend, right? We have to attract. And my mind is reeling. I'm like, tell me again, who is running the experiment? I said, oh, this is the R&D lab is going to run that. I said, is that the same lab who run just a couple dozen sample and took them 6 months? Oh yeah, that's that same lab. Do they have new equipment and new people? Not that I heard of. I say, okay, maybe that's our opportunity. I say, there may be a likelihood, I'm not going to comment whether another VP can deliver. Now I say, there may be a likelihood they may not be able to deliver in 3 months. Last time, just a couple dozen sample took them 6 to 9 months. I can promise you, during that time, I can build as much pipeline as possible. So when their samples are finally ready, we probably could just do it in a couple months. But I say, you're my leader. You have to protect me, right? This is how you negotiate. Don't promise 3 months. Just say we will do the best we can. And I also said, maybe because they flustered last time, they fumbled, they may need your expertise how to run the experiments correctly. He immediately got that. That's his opportunity to build that scientific excellency and domain expertise. And lo and behold, it took them almost a whole year to run those couple hundred samples. By then, we're the only group that kept our word and we delivered on time. And that big splash is 1 year later. But that actually, made my career easier down the road with the smart and powerful. Because you may say, hey, Jing, why do you remember example more than 20 years ago? You must be so full of yourself. I'm like, no, because he reminded me that incidents often. He want to attract me to other leadership roles in his career journey. He said, Jing, remember that incidents about getting woman pregnant and don't get a baby in 1 month? That's when I realized the sky is the limit for your career. You will do great things. Why? It's not because necessarily I'm statistically brilliant. Is I can solve on surface impossible problems, and I'm fun to work with. I'm a human being, right? And I can understand them and provide them viable solutions. And that reputation is useful. It makes your career development much easier down the road.
Awesome. Thank you both for both. Jane gave a very comprehensive analysis. Jane gave a fun story, real story. What a perfect combination for, to answer this question, right? Now you understand. We understand why both of them they are today, but I know Jane will have a bright future, but look at Jing. Her fun, the humorous, like the build up in the negotiation, not only reputation, right? Also humorous. Being humorous is important. And yes, for develop your career. That's awesome. So my next question is like, we're statisticians, right? We all love data. We touched a little bit during the discussion. I'm just wondering, like sometimes too much data may lose your audience. So what's the best way as a statistician to leverage data in your negotiation?
I can go. I'll be short on this one. I think I will quote a Chinese saying. I assume most of the audience understand Chinese, right? 知己知彼，百战百胜. Right? That also is helpful, right? What your counterpart really want. Use the data to build the argument to answer the question he or she really cares about. And coupled with that, so that's number one, that's almost always important in negotiation, in collaboration, in navigating complex situations. The second point is I often tell my junior member, when you were coming from school to an industry job, in school, your task is demonstrating you learn that particular skill, right? You go through exams, you go to defense to demonstrate you are able to do it independently. You learned it, right? But in industry, once you pass interview, gave you the offer, that is demonstrated. Otherwise, we wouldn't hire you. So your job is much less about demonstrating I'm capable doing the work. That's a necessary condition. That's the lowest bar. Your job is interpret what your analysis means for your cross-functional colleagues. How does that impact their life? How does that impact the whole project, right? So you have to display or explain your data in that context to be most usable and valued. So I'll stop there.
Great. Thanks, Jane. I think that's actually very important. And so I'll elaborate a little bit on that as well. I think today's topic is action negotiation, right? So I think within that context, you're bringing data, and as data scientists or statisticians, that's really supposedly our strong suit, right? But I think a lot of times we tend to actually focus too much on the nitty-gritty details and lose the big picture, right? But to me, the most important thing is, why is the data relevant to the discussion, to the negotiation, right? What do you expect to achieve by presenting that data? The data should be able to be there to help you, not to be there just trying to kind of confuse people, right? So what is the high level impact of these data, and what are the implications? I think those are the most important questions you need to ask yourself before even bringing these data to the table, right? And honestly, I'm gonna be a little bit harsh, on this part. I think dumping data or focusing too many on too many technical details during the negotiation is actually, a sign of disrespect, because you're shifting an unreasonable kind of burden to the other party, and those stakeholders usually they don't have the same level of understanding, right? So instead of revolving or just reiterating the statistical jargons, I would say that maybe just think about how do you want to actually sell your data to someone who lacks a deep understanding of the statistical principles, right? So again, turn that into what you really want, right? Make your data meaningful to them. I think for example, I think when Jean was sharing the example about negotiating timeline, and then I think all these you can focus on each data point right into nitty-gritty details to talk about how much efforts and the time it's going to build for one thing. Instead, I think focus on the really the impact of the data is like you first of all, I think the joke itself summarized the situation perfectly, right? So that it's a different visualization of the data per se to me. You don't really, sometimes you don't really need a plot or you need a table to convey the message, but what the message really is. I think that it's not an easy job to summarize those data into such a intuitive way. But I think definitely I would recommend practicing more and just try to build up that kind of capability.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that insights and both of you, I think, thinking about impact of data, right, to the relevant problems. That's a great point. Now let's shift the gears a little bit to talk about negotiation in the career development, around job offers, promotions, and career development. So my question is, what should a statistician focus when negotiating for promotion or to expand their job responsibilities? I think that's something people face in their work a lot. So people would love to listen to your ideas.
I'll let you go first. Yes.
Yeah, maybe I'll take a step first on this one. I think this question actually, well, although it appears to be like a negotiation question, right? But I think, in nature, it's actually not really a negotiation per se, because, I think a lot of times when people think about, oh, I wanted a promotion, right? It's, when you put that as a kind of a demand, you put that as a battle against your manager or against your organization, then to me, it's already kind of a set a tone, right? Because to me, it's not really a win or lose situation. It should be a win-win situation, because for the organization, definitely they need to be able to appreciate and recognize the talents, and and really allow clear career path for the person to actually grow, right? So to me, I think it's more kind of a planning than a negotiation, because for example, the most important person you need to talk to obviously is your manager, right? Your direct manager. And to me, it's a partnership. It's not a like kind of a negotiation or kind of demand type of situation, right? It's actually requires long-term planning. So for example, usually there's going to be a discussion right at the beginning of the fiscal year, to talk about what you really want, right? And in terms of your career development, so what do you think that you need to develop? And then of course, I think it's also a good idea to mention that what are the opportunities for you to be further exposed to kind of build your capability. I think we're also talking about expanded responsibility, right? Not necessarily promotion per se, but it's also a kind of a next level kind of growth for you. So I think to me, really, it's to communicate earlier with your manager, and so that they can work with you, they can actually build a plan for you, and at the same time, I think you also need to help them, because you are the biggest promoter of yourself, right? I think we're talking about self-advocacy. So also to understand that sometimes it's not just your manager's decision, right? Your manager could be actually very supportive, but you need to provide more evidence. You need to provide more kind of a ammunition, during the ultimate kind of decision, right? I think it's usually an organizational decision, not just the manager's decision. So you guys need to think about together is like, what you want to actually achieve, and use that achievement to demonstrate. So it's a very comprehensive kind of package per se, right? Instead of like treating it as a short-term negotiation. So that would be my main points.
Yeah, again, so comprehensively well said. I don't have much to add. Maybe just one small tip, right? It always helps. Instead of saying what I want, I'm higher salary, higher title. Say it from the angle how you will help your manager and help the organization. It'll be even better. It's just like development goes through feasibility and prototype. Show some prototype examples, right? You already show your ability to be able to help in other domains beyond your current work. You show the initiative. You can paint the picture for the manager to help the manager to help you, right? You could do more in this domain. How will that benefit the whole group, benefit the manager, and benefit the whole company? And why a higher title, a higher responsibility will make that work even more efficient, right? It will become not only palatable, right? Maybe you will make the manager eager to help you, right? It's kind of a gentle reminder and puts things into the right positive perspective.
Very good. Thank you both. I feel like today the panel is the best combination. I have to say that again.
We should collaborate more, Jian.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a not so subtle hint. We need to collaborate more.
I hope this is really helpful, to the audience as well.
I hope so. I think so. I cannot find anything. I think there's great perspective, different perspective, and just have a very comprehensive and helpful points. And next question is about the leadership role, because as a biostatistician, it seems it is a turning point when statistician start from individual contributor to a group leader, manager. So my question for both of you is, what role did the negotiation play in the moving you from, individual contributor to a leader?
I'll
Maybe
give you
you,
unconventional answer. Very short. It didn't play any role. I don't have to negotiate. The incidents I mentioned with Keith, he want to give me 5 people. I said, hey, maybe 1 or 2 may be helpful. And after that incident, he actually promoted me. He actually put me into managerial roles. And I think, again, the reputation of solving unsolvable problem, making the counterpart feel heard, and making the journey of tackling complex problem fun speaks for itself. I think in most of my managerial roles, it's people coming to find me, not the other way around. So yeah, so it's it's an unconventional answer. I just didn't need to negotiate much.
maybe I can follow up a little bit, but I actually think, Jing, something you said really resonated with me, because you mentioned that the word prototype, right? So I think leadership, right? Leadership position to me does not necessarily always mean the people manager, right? I think of course, those are very obvious, leadership positions, but I think they can also occur in your early career as well, because even if you're designated as an individual contributor, HR wise or whatever, right? For example, I think even during early career years, I think a lot of us will have the opportunity to lead something, right? Maybe it's a small working group. It's just a focus on the methodology. Or could it be some initiative, right? So for example, you might be in charge of the SharePoint side or SharePoint folder for a department or for a group, right? Or sometimes, I think a lot of us, I'm very happy to see a lot of people actually are volunteering to help conference organizations, right? So to me, it's actually much more challenging, negotiation wise, because you haven't had a lot of chance to practice yet, right? During the early years, but you need to negotiate very delicately, because technically you're leading without authority. Nobody, no one, like some manager or HR people say, hey guys, you have to listen to Jia, right? Nobody said that. And then you have to actually negotiate a lot, uh, with a lot of other people, or just with the members of that initiative, right? You need to negotiate the timeline, negotiate resource, and etc. A lot of things. So I would say, those are the prototypes. I think, Jing, you probably will agree with me, right? The small things. You start with something small. You practice a lot using those, no matter how small the stakes may look. I mean, I think it's actually even better, because they are low stake. What's the worst can happen? You don't botch a big project, right? You don't actually risk your career, but you get the chance to actually practice, so to build your confidence and the skill. I think a lot of these negotiation skills will eventually translate and contribute to your later career, and leading you to the people manager or organizational leadership.
That's
Indeed.
yes.
I may add one thing. It's not necessarily about negotiation. Actually, for our technical people, there's no shame. You don't want to be a people manager, right? You can, just as Jen said, you can be technical leaders. And also another tip, volunteer and nonprofit is a great way to test out whether you want to be a people leader. because that's where it's really your leadership and charm, because you're not paying salaries, right? There's no rank, there's no annual bonus, right? It's really whether you can influence people to serve the cause you're all passionate about. And also, it's small risk, as Jen said. If you find out you actually don't want to deal with people, it's a very safe exit. It's a non-profit, right? It's not your paycheck paying work, right? Nobody needs to know, right? So it's a very good, safe trying ground, right? And people there usually are passionate about something in common. So it's also easier to get into that swimming pool with gentle waves, because there you're not going to likely face very difficult individual. So because of that, so please consider serving for ICSA, serving for DASHU, serving for BBSW and SFASA. Those are the three I'm having leadership at, and I'm always recruiting.
Thank you so much for both of you for the inputs and yeah, those points that prepare earlier, right? The ongoing communication. And when you take ownership to advocate yourself, sometimes as Jean's story, you don't have to negotiate with your promotion, right? For your promotion. Yeah. So anyhow, I think we have so much to discuss. I have more questions, but I think we should leave the time for the audience. Right now it's 12:45. It's interesting. I don't see any questions in the Q&A session. I thought people will have lots of questions. Don't feel free to type the questions in the Q&A session if you have any. So while I'm waiting for the questions, I will ask both panelists since this negotiation skill is so important, how to develop, I think you've already touched a little bit how to develop negotiation skills, or how you're going to give your younger self about negotiation and self-advocacy. What advice to your younger self?
I think practice, just speak for, be willing to do the first step, advocate for yourself. The rest is technical, but I don't want to underestimate the technical part. And I'm no negotiation expert, so I'm going to recommend 2 books I really enjoyed. And the 2 books have very similar names, so easy to remember. The first one is called Getting More by Stuart Diamond. The second one is called Getting More of What You Want by Margaret Neal. So both are good. They really, I think, echoed many points Jen and I talking about. It's about creating value. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not about tricking other people. It's not a tug of war. It's not about calculating. It's more about how could we work together to reach a solution to create win-win, to create added value. Both books are great. The second one is written by a very famous female professor at Stanford, so maybe even more relevant for people who are more shy, more introverted, who are the minority, who don't fit into the stereotypical success image, right? How do you kind of insert yourself there, right? Make people recognize you. The second book will be even more helpful, but both are great.
Thanks, Jin. I think you have already shared a very good reading list. So I don't know if, well, we have the recording, so we will be able to actually come back and refer to those. I think those are, I think we touched upon a lot of important part. But to me, I think there is one, maybe, I don't know whether it's a misunderstanding or misconception, right? Because a lot of times I think, people kind of treat negotiation as equivalent to the sales pitch or capability, right? And I think there's, and to me, especially for biostatisticians, they're slightly different because we're not looking for a one-time deal, right? We actually try to build long-term, collaborative relationship, and especially I think we rely on facts a lot. I think we value not data. We value the facts, rather than some kind of tricks just to get people to trick people to say yes to what you want, right? So I think the perception, and it really matters to me, is because I think it's not a short-term goal, really. And I think, for statisticians or data scientists, a lot of times I think, I mentioned we can start with something small, right? But I think we can also focus on something that you truly believe that bother you. For example, one thing, I found very common to technical people, not necessarily statisticians. I found other folks, for example, data manager, medical writers, they share the same kind of issue, right? It's like it's very difficult for them to say no, right? They whenever people give them kind of requests, even unreasonable requests, they try to accommodate, they try to finish. And it's actually not a healthy kind of approach, in my opinion, right? Because you're not very happy about it. Honestly, you will have resentment later, but you just don't know how to say no to these requests. And at the end of the day, I think this could be, if that's a problem to you, that could be a starting point for you to practice more negotiation and learning how to say no, right? It's not just outright say no, I won't do it. I don't think that, right? But how to say it in a reasonable way, like you mentioned, empathetic way. Make sure people understand you as well. You understand other people, right? And then in a way that you maintain the relationship, but also you kind of make other parties realize that indeed it's very reasonable for you to say no. Or let's put it this way: say no in a way that's not a say no. Right.
Thank you, Jian. I have a question. Now I have lots of questions from Q&A. Hopefully we'll have time. I just pick one. I think it's because it's a common question. So during this is a question for Jing. And
Jing or
Jian.
Jian?
both.
Oh, both
So
of us.
during negotiation, could you share how to decide when to push and when to set back? How do you find that balance?
I think there's not a kind of a rule book, right? It goes back to what you really care about. You need to have a very good understanding of priority, like this I care most, this I care second. Because actually in the 2 negotiation book I shared, the key is don't make the assumption what you care most, other people also care most. Sometimes it is true, and even when you check the couple off, oh gosh, it's a tug of war, there may be other dimensions. There is an imbalance, something you feel very valuable, they can easily give away, or the other way around. That's usually where really skillful and successful negotiation happens. So it's not an answer, oh, if I hit this 3 checklists, I push. If I hit this 3, I pull, right? It's actually have an open mind and listen very carefully and ask open-ended questions to find that imbalance of value system and use that as an opportunity to create value for yourself and for the other party.
Yeah, I think Jing, you mentioned very important things about the timing. I think timing indeed. I think a lot of times I think you also need to really monitor the other party, right? Sometimes it's not really what they say, but sometimes could be. That's why I like in-person interaction a lot more, because you can observe the other party and you can understand, right? And that will also kind of give you the signal. Maybe I can also add a little bit, about maybe how to prepare for the negotiation, because I think Jane, you mentioned it, like tiers, right? Different categories. I think a lot of us already kind of observed a similar kind of strategy, maybe in terms of even negotiating with a regulatory agency, right? I think that applies to us as well. I think a lot of times you have the base case, the best case, right, and the worst case. So I think you have to think about what are the things that to you it's a must-have. You really want these to happen. Some things are nice to have. If you achieve that, great. If not, there is no harm in letting go. I think sometimes you do actually. It's a compromise. So you do have to give something, right, in order to achieve something. And in terms of even if you decide to step back, I think before you do that, explore the alternative options, right? So for example, when you negotiate, for example, during maybe you're looking for a job, right? You're negotiating for your salary. Maybe it's very difficult for the organization to be flexible on the base salary, right? Then maybe instead of pushing a hardball on something that's very challenging for the other party, maybe look for something else. For example, is it possible to do it in a form of sign-on, right? Just to maybe instead of just completely pushing back, but use it as a sort of like a trade, right? So there are different ways. I think I would love to also read the book Jean recommended. I think there are many more probably technical skills there as well.
Great. I'm just have to pick a few questions because we're running out of time. Next question is how to deal with co-workers that are not cooperative and not work oriented during a negotiation. Not work oriented during a negotiation. It's a difficult situation. Jean, do you want to comment first? I saw you nodding your head.
Again, you need to get to the beneath the surface, right? Like, yeah, why is that person not collaborating? Why is that person is not, like, when I hear that comment, I felt like there are already assumption being made, and whether that assumption helps with this interaction, like whether you want to change some perspectives, or at least open, right? And show sympathy, right? You will learn more from that two negotiation books. One of them, not this one, but they are also like, for example, their negotiation where it's a hostage situation, that could be, you cannot be more hostile than that, right? They kidnap somebody, you try to negotiate with them to release a hostage, right? So there are also other negotiation books written by such negotiator. I don't think your co-workers are that bad, right? They're not criminals. But even in a hostage situation, they can find common ground. You still need to show sympathy. You need to show you understand the other side's frustration to reach to a solution, right? So think about that. How bad is your coworker not trying to work with you? I have been in so many situations. I have been asked to be translators. I said, hey, I'm a Chinese. This side is a native speaker. And again, Keith, what do you want me to translate? Come. I'm so frustrated. I'm at my wit's end. You have to come. Now, what I often saw unfold is the statistician not listening, keep on talking about the technical detail without understanding the bigger problem or willing to get out of box to think together. No wonder he's frustrated. Even the other side is a native speaker, right? So I would encourage people to think, is this really as bad as a hostage situation? If hostage situation can be negotiated, if war between two countries could be ceased, could your situation be more workable? I do have to go. I have a 1:00. It's wonderful talking to you all. And I keep my promise so do the survey.
Thank you for advocating that.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jane.
Thank you, Jean. Do we have time? Maybe the last question for Jian. Now there's only one, so
Sure, no problem.
last question. What are the examples of negotiation that were not as successful as you hoped for, and what can you diagnose as a reason they did not work out? What can you diagnose as a reason? Yeah.
So not as successful as I hoped for, and what are the reasons, right? Examples. I think honestly, I was actually about to follow up, on Jean's comment regarding the previous question, and I think it applies a little bit to this question because sometimes I do believe, first of all, I think a lot of Jean's answer also apply to this question, right? Because you really need to understand why the other party is not collaborative. It's not like willing to reach or achieve a common ground between the two of you, right? But to me, I think sometimes it's really a systematic issue. It's so instead of just focusing on the two of you, maybe also step behind a little bit. Maybe you'll realize it's not really your issue or the other person's issue. Maybe the process was set up that you cannot achieve a common ground to begin with, right? In that kind of a situation, I think one example I've seen before is literally the processes of two departments, they actually conflict with each other. So no matter how you want to actually bring people together, you want to reach a common ground, it's just not possible, right? So instead of, I think, spending more time and efforts trying to negotiate on that specific matter with that specific person, sometimes it's actually a better option to just say, okay, it seems that we won't be able to reach a common ground because of this or that reason. Why don't we actually look for other solutions? Maybe, we will have to bring this to a higher level so that we achieve alignment, right, of the process between the departments, and then we can actually, as personal, individual contributors, and then we discuss the matter again. I think, sometimes deciding when to stop is also part of negotiations type skill.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Jian. We're 2 minutes over, so but I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Huang, although she left, and Dr. Zhu for your insight. It's thanks to everyone who participated today. And if there's one thing we can take over for me, it's negotiation. It's not only about getting more, right? It's about value, it's about timing, it's about relationship, reputation. So there's a lot to learn. I hope you have something to learn as well, have some inspirations from both of the panelists, and to strengthen your voice in your career and keep advocating for your impact. And don't forget to participate in the survey, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you so much, Helena and ICSA for hosting this and organizing this. And thank you all for participating. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.